Imagine a magical and wonderful place, like a legendary city called Atlantis with 10 majestic kingdoms. It was a gem of a city, lost in history. Picture its unique design, a remarkable arrangement of circles of land and water. Imagine a gateway in the south that opened to the endless sea, showing the city's connection to water. These visuals tell the story of the lost city, like a magnificent symphony. But where was this incredible place? Joe Rogan has been at the forefront of this quest for truth. On his highly popular podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, he invites experts who shed light on some of the world's best-kept secrets. Millions of people have expanded their minds through his discussions, discovering a world more fascinating than they ever imagined. Today, we dive into a narrative that Joe and his guests have uncovered, the story of Africa as the real center of Atlantis. The tale of Atlantis is a mix of archaeology, geology, and ongoing speculation. According to legend, this lost city was once the pinnacle of civilization, like Valkyria from Game of Thrones. It was a dazzling city that everyone dreamt of visiting and was the center of the world for a while. But like all great stories, it met with a tragic end. Supposedly, a massive tsunami destroyed the city, but there are rumors that Atlantis fell victim to huge natural disasters like earthquakes and just sank into the Atlantic Ocean, never to be found again. But where was Atlantis actually located? While people generally believe that it was near the Strait of Gibraltar, one explorer thinks differently. Meet Jim Corsetti, a frequent guest on the Joe Rogan Experience and the creator of the YouTube channel Bright Insight. He dives deep into the mysteries of our world, unraveling its many secrets. On his channel, Corsetti presented compelling evidence that the true Atlantis was in Africa. Tucked away in the labyrinthine folds of the Sahara Desert lies the Richat structure, a monstrous geological phenomenon nestled into the heart of Mauritania's Ardrar Plateau. The Richat structure, often referred to as the Eye of the Sahara, is a mesmerizing mystery. It's like a giant eye in the desert and it's about 40 kilometers wide. It's made of layers of rock that formed over a very long time. Several archaeologists strongly believe that the Richat structure is evidence of the existence of Atlantis in Africa. However, most experts think that it formed naturally. This disagreement creates an exciting debate between those who think that it's a myth and those who think that it's a result of geological processes. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato, who wrote about Atlantis, influenced these archaeologists' ideas. They want to clarify that they didn't believe the ruler of Atlantis and the people from Atlantis are the same, but they do see similarities between them. As these archaeologists delve into their theory, they discover intriguing connections between the supposed Atlantean structure and the Richat structure. Now, it's not just about the names here. There are much more fascinating similarities that they found. According to Plato, Atlantis was a prosperous civilization that sank under the ocean. Only a few things were left behind, like plants and mud that made it hard for ships to pass through. Digging further into the labyrinth of this theory, Jim unveiled fascinating parallels between the alleged Atlantean structure and the Richat edifice. Extending beyond the simple coincidence of the leader's naming, the narrative started taking an even more intriguing turn. Plato, in his writings, mournfully suggested that the once flourishing civilization of Atlantis was buried under the ocean, leaving only a scattering of artifacts and remnants behind. These remnants painted a vivid picture of an environment teeming with reed grass, intermingled with a thick, sticky mud that clogged any naval passage in or out of the area. Fast forward to the present, the Sahara, a stark and dry desert, once flourished. It had a lush, verdant blanket approximately 4,500 to 5,000 years ago. Intriguingly, a river believed to be the Tamanrasset River was said to course just north of Atlantis. This very river was speculated to have flowed through West Africa, with Mauritania in its path around 5,000 years ago. It then journeyed through the heart of the Richat structure, reaching as far as the Atlas Mountain in what is now known as Morocco. The simultaneous disappearance of these two massive structures seems far beyond the realm of coincidence. As Jim fervently suggests,
and Atlantis or not, whether it ever existed or whether or not the Richat structure would be the long-lost location, if nothing else, like I said earlier, the Richat structure should be listed on Natural Wonders of the World.
This could be decisive proof that Atlantis was nestled in the heart of Africa. Let's talk about the possibility of the lost city of Atlantis being found in the Sahara Desert in Africa. Africa has a rich history, and when we think of Africa, we often think of Egypt. Egypt is known for its ancient and mysterious structures like the Sphinx and the pyramids. These remarkable buildings demonstrate the intelligence and the advanced technology of the people who lived long ago. Recent discoveries have suggested that the ancient Egyptians were even more advanced than we had previously thought. Some researchers believe that they had sophisticated tools and technology for their time. These findings make us wonder what other secrets lie hidden in the sands of time. To explore the mysteries of ancient Egypt even further, we can look at the work of Ben van Kerwijk, a content creator and a history enthusiast. He spent a lot of time studying ancient Egypt and has become an expert on the subject. In a conversation with Joe Rogan, Ben discussed a theory proposed by Jim Corsetti, suggesting that the ancient Egyptians actually had power tools. Ben pointed out the presence of marks and stamps on ancient Egyptian architecture that indicate the use of machinery. He mentioned an archaeological site from the Old Kingdom that holds clues to this ancient era, although it's currently inaccessible. Ben also referred to the pioneering works of Sir Flinders Petrie, a British Egyptologist who integrated engineering principles into the study of ancient Egypt. According to Ben, there is evidence to support the idea that the ancient Egyptians had drilling equipment powerful enough to penetrate granite walls. Although most of their drills failed, they were able to drill horizontally for impressive distances. This suggests a level of technological sophistication that challenges our assumptions about ancient civilizations. Jim added an important perspective to the discussion. He argued that modern archaeology might be limited by its focus on mainstream views and established methodologies. He suggested that we should be open to alternative ideas, like the possibility that the ancient Egyptians possessed advanced technology like power tools. Considering these theories and discoveries, we should be willing to question our preconceived notions and explore the complexity of the ancient world. The idea that Atlantis could be found in the Sahara Desert adds another layer of intrigue to Africa's historical significance. During a podcast episode in March 2023, Rogan and Michael Malice, a guest of his, obviously, discussed the idea that ancient Egyptian structures may have been created using advanced technologies that have actually just been lost over time. This challenges our understanding of history, and it raises questions about the capabilities of our ancestors. Joe Rogan has always been fascinated by the evolution of technology. In today's world, technology like artificial intelligence and advanced weapons shapes our lives. However, Joe pondered the fact that our ancestors had much simpler tools like hammers and spears. This really made him appreciate the remarkable progress of humanity. Considering this progression, Joe proposed an intriguing theory. He suggested that the ancient Egyptians might have developed a different and now forgotten path of technological advancement. He wondered if they had acquired knowledge and skills that remain a mystery to us. Despite the glories of its golden era, the Egyptian Empire, much like all great civilizations, was not immune to the inevitable cycle of rise and fall. As the empire receded into the sands of time, it left behind an enigmatic legacy, cloaked in mystery. Around 2200 BC, the Old Kingdom of Egypt, as described in ancient texts, seemed to plunge into chaos. Foreign invasions, rampant diseases, internal strife, and famine so extreme that it led to cannibalism all appeared to signal the collapse of a once great civilization. Studies from recent years suggest a long-lasting drought around the same period, suggesting that Mother Nature may have actually been the catalyst that sent the Old Kingdom spiraling into its own dark age. But not all historians agree with this picture. Many, like Professor Thomas Schneider of the University of British Columbia, argue that the decline was more of a gradual shift than a sudden crash. Climate changes might have affected different parts of Egypt differently, not necessarily always for the worse. Our perspective on this time of transition, known as the First Intermediate Period, relies heavily on a historical document called the Admonitions of Ippur. It paints a grim picture of life during this period, describing a land bereft of barley, a lack of clothing, and other basic needs, with widespread chaos inside of the rule of a wise and powerful pharaoh. Yet the authenticity of this document is questionable. The oldest known version of the text was recorded about 800 years after the events that it describes, raising doubts about its reliability. It's thought that such texts might have been crafted to frighten people with tales of disaster and chaos without a strong central authority, reinforcing the power of the Middle Kingdom pharaohs. Yes, there were hard times towards the end of the Old Kingdom. Economic decline, a shift in the Nile's course, the absence of large-scale construction projects are all testaments to that. Environmental changes, such as aridification, are reflected in tomb paintings and inscriptions. But according to Schneider, society adjusted to these gradual changes without catastrophic disruptions. Power slowly shifted from the pharaoh to local leaders who could respond more effectively to crises. In the absence of any clear archaeological evidence of civil war, Nadine Moyler, an archaeologist in the University of Chicago, argues that Egypt remained politically unified long after the reign of Pepi II, typically considered the last Old Kingdom pharaoh. In Upper Egypt, towns and cities grew, showing signs of cultural dynamism, possibly even a population increase. there are no indications of widespread famine from the study of skeletons in that era. Barry Kemp, a Cambridge archaeologist, notes evidence of local disputes, but nothing on a large scale. Instead of a collapse, he suggests there was a change in the governing system. According to recent studies, the period between the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom might have been significantly shorter and less traumatic than previously believed. A key missing piece to this historical puzzle is data from Lower Egypt, a region potentially more affected by the changes in the Nile's flood pattern. Archaeologist Sarah Parkak from the University of Alabama at Birmingham says that without better settlement data, it's kind of hard to gauge the impact of the drought. While she believes climate change played a significant role in Egypt's transition, understanding its full impact on a civilization as vast and complex as ancient Egypt remains a challenge. She stresses the need for more research, more data in understanding the role of the environment playing in shaping Egypt's history. Michael, a fellow scholar and friend, resonated with Joe's fascination for the Sphinx. He too felt its magnetic pull. The ancient structure, weathered by time, was an enigma that even the native Egyptians were reluctant to discuss. It was as if the Sphinx had sprouted from the barren sands, its origins concealed by the dunes of time. The Sphinx, some people think, might not just be one thing, but a mix of two different structures. Its oddly uneven head, which looks small compared to its huge body, suggests that the ancient builders may have wanted to put a human face on top of an already existing building. Such a prospect sent shivers down their spines. Who could have conceived and executed such an architectural feat? What became of these elusive architects? Their existence echoed only in their undying creation. The Sphinx is like a time traveler's dream, whisking us back to an age of ancient wonders. It's a magical beast from long ago, fascinating people all over the world. The air of mystery that surrounds it makes it even more captivating. No one really knows where the Sphinx came from. It was made about 4,500 years ago during Egypt's Old Kingdom, but why it was built and which pharaoh it shows is still a puzzle. Some say it's the pharaoh Khafre, but others have other guesses. Figuring out the real story of the Sphinx is like trying to solve a riddle that has been teasing us for centuries that, well, the original teller is dead, so... The sheer genius of the Sphinx's design is truly mind-blowing. Carved from a single chunk of limestone, it's as tall as a 6-story building and as long as 2 football fields. The details from its human face to the lion's body are incredibly intricate, showing off the amazing talent of its ancient Egyptian creators. The sharp precision of its design stamps the Sphinx as a truly classic piece of ancient architecture. In its time, the Sphinx meant a lot to the ancient Egyptians. It was seen as a symbol of power, of the pharaohs, almost like a god. Its lion body stood for bravery and strength, and its human face for smarts and wisdom, the perfect mix for a ruler. Plus, the Sphinx is already seen as a kind of security guard, keeping watch over sacred places and royal tombs, and scaring away any bad spirits. Sphinx is also famous for its riddles. According to Greek stories, the Sphinx would only let travelers pass if they could solve its riddles. The most famous one goes, "What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening?" The answer? A person who crawls as a baby, walks as an adult, and then leans on a cane when old. These riddles just make the Sphinx seem even more mysterious and exciting. Through thick and through thin, the Sphinx has managed to hang in there. It's faced the elements and human meddling for thousands of years. Its face, scarred by wind, sand, and rain, and its missing nose adds to its air of mystery. But despite everything, the Sphinx stands tall, reminding us of the ancient world and leaving anyone who sees it in total awe. So the Sphinx isn't just a cool sculpture. It's a bridge to the past that takes us back to a long-gone civilization. Its secret beginnings, incredible design, powerful symbolism, puzzling riddles, and survival story make it a world-famous symbol for human creativity and the urge to discover. As a silent watcher of history, the Sphinx encourages us to uncover its secrets, solve its riddles, and stand amazed at its wonders. When they looked at the Sphinx, they could see how old it was. Its body showed signs of weather and time. The worn look of the Sphinx and the temple nearby showed clearly how long they'd been around, standing tall through many, and dare I say many years. From looking at these signs, Joe and Michael made an exciting guess. They thought that maybe the Sphinx was made as long as 10,000 years ago. They imagined it standing there looking just as good as it does now, until an interested pharaoh found it. Amazed by how impressive it was, the pharaoh might have quickly tried to fix it up. This could have turned the Sphinx into the mystery-filled structure that we know today. Thinking about this brought up a lot of thrilling questions, a lot of ideas. The Sphinx, quiet and still, kept its secrets, drawing in explorers like Joe and Michael. They were ready to start a journey of trying to understand the whispers of its puzzling past. When it comes to mysteries from a long time ago, the Great Pyramids of Giza are at the top. They're like the big question that I would say nobody's really talking about, but more like that conversation just is kind of old and it hasn't gone anywhere for a while. Over time, a lot of people have had a lot of different ideas about what these pyramids were for. Some think that they were places for ancient Egyptian kings and queens to be buried. Others guess that there were huge grain storage spaces, like old-time food banks. But the truth is, no one explanation fits all, and no one really knows why or how these amazing buildings were made. There's this ongoing debate that the pyramids contradict what we understood about human history and technology. Just think about it. These structures have existed for over 4,000 years. How did they pull that off? How did they haul those heavy stones over such distances and craft such precise structures without the tools that we rely on today? One wild theory tosses in the idea of extraterrestrial involvement. I'm sure you've heard it. Aliens said they built the pyramids. I mean, and I say it like that, but it might because it sounds bonkers. But when you take a step back, it does kind of click, right? The guilty pleasure being like, well, I don't know. Some people believe that the Egyptians got their hands on futuristic tech, using it to move hefty stones and carve out pyramids with uncanny accuracy. Some even argue that the pyramids align so perfectly with certain celestial bodies that could only be the result of high-end machinery. Another fascinating theory says that the ancient Egyptians might have had a handle on gravity itself. This theory suggests that they had anti-gravity tech at their disposal, which they used easily to lift and place enormous stones. Of course, this is just theories. Most historians and archaeologists give them the side eye. But they sure do add an extra layer of mystique and marvel to the pyramids. Both researchers and tourists find these structures endlessly intriguing. And the reality is, we're still scratching our heads over them. Despite the lack of proof, or solid proof, rather, for these theories about ancient tech or advanced civilizations, they do make us wonder. Or at least, they make this guy wonder. They push us to look beyond what's in front of us. These age-old mysteries continue to tickle our curiosity, challenging our understanding of our own history. Is the lost city hiding in plain sight, waiting to rewrite our history books? Let us know down in the comment section down below. Hit that like button and subscribe for more. Bye.